So this morning we have Cody Richert with us. Cody was the epitome of a student athlete when he was at Marion High School, and I don't want to steal his thunder, and I'll let him talk about what he was involved in when he was here at the high school. But he was definitely a pleasure to watch on the basketball court and a great student to have in class. So Cody, I'd love to start out with you just kind of sharing a little bit about your time at Marion High School.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My time at Marion High School, arguably for the best years of my life. As Miss Hudgens said, many of it was spent on either the field or the court. I played soccer, baseball, and basketball all 4 years. So that was very time consuming, but probably some of the best experience of my life, being with my friends all day, every day. And yeah, so it's kind of.
What year did you graduate, Cody?
I graduated in 2009.
Okay, time flies, 2009. So from the time you left Marion High School to where you are today, if you wouldn't mind to kind of walk us through your career path and what led you to the profession that you're in today, that would be great.
Yeah, so at Marion High School, I took numerous accounting and business courses, and that kind of led me along the business and financial career path that I'm in now. So after I graduated in 2009, I went to the University of Illinois, studied there for 5 years. I got an undergraduate degree in accounting, and then I got a master's degree in accounting as well. From there, I took a position at RSM. It's one of the bigger accounting and tax companies in the world. I did 3 years of audit at RSM in Chicago. I think that was a great place to start my career, kind of in the audit industry. You learn about so many different companies. Everyone kind of goes in there not knowing too much about companies rather than just kind of the book work. So you understand that and the accounting aspect, but then you learn a lot along the way too. After 3 years there, I went and took a role in Indianapolis for a year at a behavioral health hospital. There I was the controller and then did a CFO training program as well. That was more day-to-day financial and accounting operations at that specific hospital. And then after that, I went back to RSM in the current role I'm in. I've been there for another year and a half. And that role is transaction advisory. So basically, a lot of our clients are private equity clients. So any company that's looking to be bought or sold, we will do financial due diligence on them. You basically just go in, make sure the accounting is accurate, and then try to normalize their earnings. And then usually a company is bought or sold on a multiple of EBITDA. So that's where I'm currently at. And now I've been holed up in Southwest Michigan for about the last month, working remotely. So that's awesome. It's also been very beneficial that we're able to work remotely. So
that's nice. So if you weren't working remotely, what does a typical day look like for you?
Typical day, my current role, we are typically in the office every day, kind of in normal business hours. All of our projects are project-based, so we could be extremely busy one day, and then your project ends, and then you might have more administration stuff to do. And then once you do get a project, that's usually full-blown 6 to 8 weeks is a typical project. We'll be on site at the target that's either being purchased or sold. And we'll go on site and interview their management team, usually their controller, their CFO, possibly their president. Those meetings will typically last 2 or 3 days. And you just learn the business, kind of the ins and outs for the past 2 to 3 years. After we do that, then we'll kind of bring our findings back to the office, continue to discuss as a team there, work into our analysis, and then typically issue a report to our client. And like I said, our client can either be the company that's being sold, or our client can also be the private equity company that is buying the target. And then we'll typically issue that report typically, if all goes well, in 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, so for my students, private equity companies mean that this is a company that is buying or selling, but this isn't a company that's traded publicly, like their stock isn't traded publicly. Is that correct?
Correct. Most of these companies, private equity, they pull money from a bunch of different investments, either personal or family. I know we work with very large private equity companies that are very small. Some of the private equity companies can just be family ran company, and that is all they do is they buy and sell businesses. So typically they will buy a business, they will implement their people, any efficiencies or synergies they can implement to get better margins or running operations cleaner. And then typically they will sell that business typically in 5 to 10 years.
Wow. So I would assume then you build relationships because they are companies that are kind of doing this process repeatedly. So you establish a good rapport with them, and you're on multiple projects with the same equity company.
You're exactly right. Some of our equity companies, you can do 1 or 2 a year. Others I was on, and I think we've had the relationship for 5 years, and we're doing their 170th one. So
Wow.
once you establish that relationship and show them that you can produce a good report and they're very pleased with it, they'll continue to come back to you.
That's great. So do you travel much with your job, or are most of your projects in the Chicagoland area?
We do travel. All of my travel has been US based so far, but yeah, I've traveled. This past year we traveled to San Diego, California a second time, Denver twice, been to Texas recently, the Boston and Maine area, and then some Chicago based as well. But yeah, a lot of our private equity clients are based in Chicago, but the companies they're buying can be all over the world, but most of them are US based, yes.
Gotcha. So, what are the things that you think set someone in your field apart or help them advance? What are the skill sets or the characteristics of a professional that seems to do well in your profession?
Yeah, I would say obviously just a good base and understanding of accounting and finance roles. And that was, I learned obviously through high school and then college, and then also the 3 years I spent in audit. And I think that was a great base. And then, like you said, building those relationships. So now I think that's kind of what sets you apart, because everyone kind of has the same understanding of the accounting and the finance roles. And so eventually what sets you apart, either in those management meetings or working with teams. Our teams are typically structured 4 to 6 people each team, and your team rotates. I think we have 90 people in our group. And so your team, you could work with one person 1 week and then not work with them for the next year and a half. So just being able to just be a good team member and then being personable, I think that sets you apart straight from the beginning, and then continues to help you build relationships, and then eventually helps you bring in more business by building those relationships outside of your team and in the industry.
I continue to hear alumni say that networking, communication skills are critical no matter what path you're on. Those are things that you can't get around. If you have the technical skills but you can't communicate it well, that's going to be a problem. So that's good to hear. It's a repeating theme that I think is important for my students to hear.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, those technical skills are just as important, but what sets you apart, in my personal opinion, is definitely building those relationships, continuing to touch base with those people, just check in here and there, getting out, networking, whether it's grabbing coffee with someone or it's volunteering at a charity function. It's kind of crazy the number of people you run into just being out and being social.
So those same things would apply if we were talking to high school students. If you were in my classroom today, I mean, they can volunteer. There are lots of opportunities for them to start that networking process even as a high school student. I would say you did a lot of networking through all of the athletics that you were involved in and student organizations. Would that be true?
Yeah, I would say did a lot of networking through not only the high school, through my church. Anywhere you can get involved, there's going to be people that are willing to lend you a hand to help you get involved and kind of show you the way. They understand that you're young and you're trying to get out there, and they've been in your shoes. So just reaching out to someone, telling them, hey, you're looking to get involved. What can I do here? Whether it's, I know through church, I would volunteer at the soup kitchen numerous times during the summer. That was something that I could do, and it could be flexible on my busy sports schedule. I was never really able to hold a job while in high school because of all the practices and the
Yeah.
sports. So I think that that's a great way to kind of get out there. It's just networking, not only in the high school, but anywhere. If it's a church, a community center, just reach out. It doesn't have to be weekly. It can be kind of one-off here and there, and just you'll meet people and they'll reach back out to you if they have another opportunity as well.
That's very, very good advice. So you mentioned that you work on teams. Are there certain people who maybe specialize in certain industries that are placed on teams based on the client that you're working with, or is it kind of more just availability and the time frame that you're working with? How does that work?
Yeah, our team has been growing pretty fast over the past couple of years. So initially, the transaction advisory group, they did deals across all industries, whether it's healthcare, technology, manufacturing. And now we're starting to split those groups up as we get bigger, and
Gotcha.
the M&A industry continues to advance. So we have healthcare, technology, financial services, manufacturing and distribution, and then just a kind of a business services line as well. So
Gotcha.
I do most of mine in the manufacturing and the business services field, and those can kind of overlap, where technology and healthcare and financial services can be a little more finicky and kind of have their own issues here and there.
So it's not uncommon for someone to kind of start out as a generalist and then over time end up specializing based on experience.
Right. I would definitely suggest as you're getting your foot in the door somewhere to be that generalist and try to see as much as you can. I think that's why starting an audit is a great position.
I
Because
agree.
you can see so many different companies. You understand, hey, this industry is exactly what I'm looking for. Or, hey, I don't ever want to touch that industry again. I gave it a shot. I tried it out. And then you can let your manager know, hey, I would love more technology-based jobs. Or that healthcare one just wasn't for me. Hopefully we can take that one off my schedule next year. So, but I
That's
would say, yeah, starting as the generalist, you get to see so many industries, see it once, see it through. And then if you don't enjoy it, you might not have to ever see it again.
yeah. Okay. That's good. That's good for students to hear. So my final question for you today is just thinking back to when you were in high school, or if you were speaking to my class today, what do you think you are going to speak to them? I'm going to share this with them. What do you think is important for them to know as a junior or senior in high school?
I think we touched on it. Get involved, network. I think that's kind of the most important. As a senior, you've already have a lot of your classes picked for the rest of the year. But as a junior, I would say when you're picking classes next year, sit down, take time, think about, hey, is this something I can see myself doing in the future, and take that class. Especially the AP courses. If I know Marion offers so many more AP courses than what they did when I went through, and
Yeah.
that put you. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say we have AP Econ now, which for business students, if you can get that knocked out while you're still in high school, worth it.
Yes, I agree. I know there's so many more AP courses, and that just puts you ahead of everyone that you're going to be going to college with. And so you're already a step kind of ahead of the competition. So if that's something you enjoy, I would say definitely take it. Yeah, it's going to challenge you. It's going to be great. And you might not get that A that you get every year. You might get a B or something, but it's fine. It's well worth it.
Yes.
That's kind of what I would say.
I'm gonna chase that rabbit for a minute and just do a little PSA for our AP courses, because I am gonna share this with students first, but then with parents. And they can save a lot of money if the
Yeah,
student does pass the AP course. Some of our AP courses are even set up as dual credit, so that even if you don't take the AP test, you can get the dual credit, and you can knock a semester or two off of your college costs if you use that right. So the AP test is about $90, but you get 3 credit hours for that. So what I tell
your
my
book
students,
will be more than $90.
yes, I tell my students all the time, like, it's worth trying, you know. I also tell my students, don't let the $90 keep you from doing it. Like, if that's an issue, we'll figure that out. But
Exactly.
it's worth giving it a shot, um, because depending upon which university you go to, and what program you're in, it can be a huge savings for your family. I mean, that's so do the AP classes and dual credit if you can. Yes.
Yes, I would reiterate that point. It is a huge savings, but then it also just puts you ahead of the competition. I had friends that um, came into Illinois and they already had 30 credit hours, and so they started as a sophomore. And I'm like, how did you get all these credit hours? And then I know at U of I, and I don't know if this is at every school, but you pick courses. You're available to pick courses by so seniors pick their courses first, and then juniors, and then sophomores, and then freshmen. So it would go by credit hours, how many you came in with. So I was always picking my courses last every year. And then I had other friends that were getting into their entrepreneurial class that they wanted, or kind of any courses here and there. And they don't offer every course to every student that wants to take it. Sometimes it's a specific teacher who can only take it or can only teach it, and they can only teach it this hour. So if it doesn't fit in there, or if it's full, you're not going to get into it. So I would say it definitely, not only does it put you ahead of the competition for jobs, but it also puts you ahead of your peers for getting into that class if that's really what you wanted. So I would reiterate that point. And yes, the $90, it'll figure itself out, and that's going to be more than what you're going to pay for that textbook in class. So
Exactly.
well
Yeah,
worth it.
that is true. My two younger children and my own children, you're right. They got to register quicker, and they got into some of those classes that were harder to get into because they were sophomores quicker, and then juniors, you know, ahead of others. So it's worth it, for sure.
And it gets you out of the 8 a.m. classes too.
Here we are meeting at 8 a.m.
Yeah. How times have changed. My
You're
fancy
adulting. Well, Cody, I really appreciate you doing this for my students and for me today. It was so good to catch up with you, and I want to thank you. And the next time you're in Southern Illinois and we're actually in school, I would love for you to come in and speak face to face with my students.
I would love it. Thanks, Hudge. Have a
Thank,
good one.
thank you.